right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another session of Stories of a Colorful World Authors Conversation. I am Kanika Mobley, and we also have Vanessa Mitchell, and we are the co-founders of Stories of a Colorful World. So we're an online bookstore that specializes in books featuring BIPOC characters, so Black, Indigenous, and people of color, really thinking about representation and those images. And today we are so excited to have not only a first-time author, but also our Spelman sister, Jasmine Owens.
Hey.
Yes. It is so, we are so excited to speak with you today. Jasmine, before we get started, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I am originally from Dallas, Texas. So shout out to all of my friends and family there. Currently live in Atlanta. I've been here for, I know, probably 15 years now, and started here after going to Spelman College. Here, I'm married, have a great husband, 2 kids. They are 5 and 2. And during the day, I actually work in the public health field. I've been doing that for over a decade. And so I definitely have a passion for public health and women and children's health. And in addition, I am a new author. So I'm really excited to be here and just so grateful for the opportunity to talk to you all, my Spelman sisters today.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the early years. So what were your experiences as a young reader?
Yeah, my experiences. Well, I was really into oral reading, and I used to do a lot of like competitions growing up, like in elementary. We had this organization, at least I think it was maybe just in Texas, but there were competitions in all different areas. And oral reading is one thing that I gravitated towards very early. And just liking to read like poetry and things like that from an early age. I remember I used to read like Royal Dahl, really gravitated to like that style, and used to compete in various competitions. And in addition, I was really drawn to like, it's like mystery books, things like The Babysitter's Club and Goosebumps. Those of you who know Goosebumps. So I just, I like to read a lot as a kid, and also create my own stories. That's probably my earliest memory of like writing and thinking creatively. It was, just coming up with stories as a kid. But then kind of got away from that the older that I got.
Well, you've come back.
Right.
You've come back.
Exactly. Yeah, I know, and it really is full circle.
Absolutely. Do you still write any poetry?
No, I don't. In this book, I mean, other than, you write for other things, work and school, but as far as for fun, like this book was really the first project that I did to write for fun. I started it in 2016, and it's been a journey ever since. Of course, it didn't take that long to write it, but that's when I really started and got back to writing and just putting ideas on paper, and even though I wanted to do it for a long time, I was really pushed after I had my daughter to like create this book.
So I was going to ask you, so when did you realize you wanted to get into writing? Like, when did it seem like, no, this is real. I'm feeling this, like I need to take some steps forward and make it happen?
Yeah, it was definitely in 2016. Like the first memory I have of thinking about writing a children's book was probably like a senior in college. I remember, and I don't really remember what sparked it, like that initial, like, I want to write a children's book. But I remember having a conversation with one of my friends in college, like at lunch. And we had went out, here in Atlanta, and we were just talking about our goals once we graduated. And one of the things that I had said to her was like, I want to write a children's book. But I didn't really let that idea develop. I knew like I would know what it should be about when the time was right. And in 2016, that's really when I felt the time was right, and right because I was a new mother. And part of that whole journey, she even got here, was we really got into building her library, before she was born. So like we did, instead of cards for the baby shower, we said, bring us books. And so that was something that stood out as, I guess a defining moment where I knew I really wanted to, my husband and I, we really wanted to make it a point to read regularly to her. And in reading to her at an early age, I really felt like, man, I really want to write something that I can give to her, and that I can use to kind of pour in the kind of content that I want her to be able to have, growing up, and at an early age at that.
Absolutely. It's funny because Vanessa planned my baby shower. And we also had starting the baby's first library as
Yes.
bring books
I
to the
love
baby
it.
shower.
I know, and it was like
Yeah.
one of those things on, Pinterest. You're like, oh, that's such a great idea. I mean, cards are nice, but it's not tangible, and you end up, we have plenty of cards like tucked away. You just save them. But I'm like, books, yes, like that makes sense. And we wanted to have, you know, books anyway. Yeah, I love that idea.
And you start to learn about the types of books that other people like, right? So I started thinking about books that I read as a kid, books that I would want to share, stories that I would want to share.
Yes.
So I think it's such a great idea.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. And in thinking about like some of the things I got for her initially, after we had our initial collection, it was things that I remember from my childhood, like those the classics, or the ones that are deemed classics. Your Good Night Moons, and the Very Hungry Caterpillar, those types of books. But yeah, and it's interesting too. I remember feeling like, okay, and it was a turning point at some point where I did get some initial books that were like diverse in terms of they were representing like Black babies. But I really started like ramping it up, and whenever we would go to the bookstore, my husband and I would be very intentional about like, okay, let's get some other books that, will show her, in them. And I know that's a sentiment that a lot of parents have, whether you're, whatever color you are and whatever background you come from. You're just making sure that you're intentional about the things that you're exposing your child to.
Absolutely. And so you kept feeling this nudge of, okay, I feel like I need to write a children's book. I feel like I need to write a children's book. And then you have Girls Can Dream, which is an ABC book of different careers that girls can aspire to. So what made this book the book that, like, what was the inspiration for this particular book?
Yeah, oh, so many different things. The first thing was like when I thought about my own personal career journey, it was one word stood out the most in my head, and it was exposure. And exposure in different ways. I was like, well, what did I not have? And so for one, when it came to careers, I felt like, I didn't have as much exposure as maybe I would have needed to help me think broadly about options that are available, in the world. And I think it made me kind of stutter to figure out, well, what do I want to do? But also made me feel like, well, there was only maybe one thing that I could do in life. You can think about having like one career and you like stick with that, when in truth, there are plenty of people juggling very well, different things and whatever their interests are. So the exposure just to careers kind of broadly is one thing that made me want to write about, careers. And then also I didn't have the exposure to professional, Black women as role models, like in my just like immediate circle. And that was the thing that made me really decide to have the characters represent the diversity among, Black women in professional careers. And then I was also reflecting on my time at Spelman. When I came to Spelman, I actually had a culture shock. And you think about like, well, that's your culture. Well, for me, I grew up in an environment that was not predominantly Black. I'm like the one or two or three in my classes. And even though I had, of course, plenty of friends and family that's Black, being in an academic environment like that, and then just in Atlanta, gave me a different worldview on, Black people from all different walks of life. And so that's why I wanted to at least try to bring in some diversity in terms of like different skin tones and just different hair styles to the book. And then I went, of course, like with that ABC feel, because I wanted to just, play on the towards the younger kids, but then also giving some information in there just to give them like a snippet about what each career, does for kids who can actually like read it for themselves, but will be inquisitive enough to ask their parent, like, well, what do they do? And like spark that conversation when reading the book. So those were the things that really helped me to think about like, what is the purpose of this book? And what do I hope, it will achieve when it's out there?
I have to say that the timing is impeccable for this book, right? Just knowing that we now have our first Black female vice president, right? And us as girls being able to see ourselves in fields. And one of the things I absolutely loved about the book, and Kanika and I joked about it because some of the fields we were like, I didn't know what a yard master did.
Yeah.
But I love that you picked right. I love that you picked non-traditional fields.
Yeah.
Right, because we always think of the doctors, the lawyers, but there's so many different avenues of what we can do, who we can be, and especially us brown girls.
Yes.
Right? Especially us brown girls.
Exactly.
You kind of talked about too what the diverse representation, why it's important, but what does that mean to you? And then again, what does that mean to your daughter? You have small kids now. How important and what does that look like for you as they grow up?
Yeah. I think it, I think it means like being not only like aware of differences that exist, whether it's among Black people or, other people, but also being, like accepting of that and embracing, people who are different. I mean, that's something I definitely want my children to know and to understand, and understand like fundamentally, you just have to love people. And I just kind of lost my train of thought. Yeah, and I think diversity just in general, like when it comes to, this field or just any other, means having representation at all levels, not just what you see and what's in front of you, but the things that you don't see that could have just as much of an influence on, me and you or the next person as what's, right there, whether it's in a book or, the person behind the scenes, like making the book actually get out, to the community, or the person editing it or, illustrating it. And in those types of things were parts of my, I guess, goal when writing this book was to have, like, at different levels, like a Black woman involved in making it possible. So yeah, that's just kind of my initial, thoughts, how I would want it to, be, I guess, reflected and then shared with my own, own kids. But then also to realize that, like, it takes real work, because that's not like our natural makeup, in our society or community. And so you have to be just very intentional about making sure that diversity exists.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So you kind of spoke on like wanting to have, different Black women like in the different positions, like as you were creating this book. What has that process been in like the creation of your baby being birthed?
Yeah, are you thinking in terms of like the process of like the illustration and like the character development?
Yeah, just kind of like putting it together and like making those decisions just in terms of how you want this book to be represented
Yeah.
and getting it out into the world.
Mhm. Well, I think what made it very easy for me, I would say that it was easy because my illustrator, again, Black woman, she's from Nigeria,
Mm.
lives there, so we were talking virtually, but she got it, and that's what her work is all about, Black, women. And so when we talked about it, she was like, I love the idea, like, yeah. And so I already knew, like, okay, I liked her style and things like that. But we talked about, things like, well, what can we do to represent, maybe someone who um, is, well, not just someone, well, what things did I want in particular? Those were things like different skin tones, and so there were just small tweaks like, oh, okay, maybe let's change this one and let's just make sure we have like enough variation. But in general, like, off the top, like, she got it. And I think that really speaks to a very key part of developing a book, is just having the right fit when it comes to like the illustrations, like you can put the words on the page, but illustration, that's what catches, the attention, first and foremost. And so, she made it a very smooth process, and she wasn't like the first either, there were others, along the way, but she ended up being the one who ultimately like meshed with and got it. So yeah, everything else, she did her own research with like coming up with their, attire. And yeah, it was just small things. Like when I think about current events and things and different influences that we wanted to have, like in the book, I was like, well, maybe she should wear like the judge I have here. Like, let's put like some pearls on her, right? Or I was even thinking about like, we had, lost RBG. And so I was like, well, maybe she could have like a collar on her, like to just kind of represent like women who are, judges. So there was just tweaks like that happened along the way, or just little things that was like, well, let's add this, like small little detail. But in general, when it came to representing Black, girls, she You got it.
Have you had any challenges, being a new author, and getting and knowing that we are already underrepresented in the industry, but have you had any challenges getting your book out there, getting it to the masses?
Yeah, well, I would say it's still so early for me. So I just released officially on March the 2nd. And then before that, I was doing pre-orders and got a lot of great, support from family and friends. And I think a lot of times, especially when you're self-publishing, like that's what you see. And it could be the complete opposite, but you get like a great, rush. People want to support you. So I've been very fortunate to have that support and really felt like I hit the ground running. Now I'm in that phase where I feel like, okay, I have to really be thoughtful about like where I put the resources. Cause again, I'm self-publishing and, this is like, our own, funds that we're using to get, and definitely to be accountable. What avenues do I want to use to promote? And I've been looking at ones that are, targeting, let's say multicultural or, diversity, or just really have a focus on that. Of course, again, the book is for anybody. But, really just feeling like, okay, I really want to be intentional about driving it home and making sure that it definitely gets into the hands of, little girls and boys, I would say too, because
Right.
little Black boys can read books about girls too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and I do feel that like the work of getting things written, that was pretty, there was a lot in trying to find like the right illustration for the gap. I said, so I will say that was a hurdle. But after finding, Marina Kay, shout out to her, I really felt like, okay, man, I'm moving. And now that I'm in this phase of it's out, it's like, okay, now you have to like strategize and like really figure it out. So I'm learning as I go, which is a fun thing for me too, because that's not like my natural personality. Like I like to know ahead of time, like, how do I do this? And really before I make a move, have it laid out. But it's helping me to grow in my own like flexibility and just learning how to do instead of thinking so hard about things. So I do feel though that, yeah, there probably will be some, just challenges in being a independent author, self-publishing, and just making sure that I can just tap into as many resources as possible to get it out.
Absolutely. Are there, so as you're thinking about like you, and one of your inspirations was actually like your family and wanting them to have, the type of books that they can see themselves represented in. Do you guys have any, or have you created any like family rituals, like story time rituals?
Yeah, it's a thing. Like my kids know every night, like it's time to read a book. After that, we're gonna pray and we go to bed. So it's like, and if we don't do that, just like probably a lot of kids, if you deviate from that routine, it's gonna be rough. So that's definitely, one thing that we have done. And we had our son started doing the same thing with him. Now I feel like, and it's probably just juggling, two kids. It's like we will read a book that he wants, and then in his room, and then I'll go with my daughter and we'll read hers. But I really want to bring us together and have more time that we can like really read one for her. And we do that sometimes too, which is making it a part of our routine of just like reading together. But sometimes it's just too hard because they get distracted, and it's just kids. It
It's
just
hard for little ones.
Yeah. But it's fun.
I'm sure that makes them feel special though, like having that individual time with you, with their story. I'm sure that is, something that they value and will appreciate later.
Yes, exactly. And my daughter, she's in that day system. I'm like, we have to read something educational. So she has princess books are like educational because they teach phonics. And so I'm like, okay, you can read those. And like she'll read those to me. But other days I'm like, no, this is just like a normal like Cinderella book. We're not reading that today. Like pick something else. And I'm sure my son, he doesn't really know because he's 2, but we probably wouldn't read those books to him.
So what was your kids, what was their reaction to your book and to you being an author?
Oh my gosh. It's one of those things like when she understood because like towards the end, she sat her down with a computer and like to the pictures and looking at it like, really? Wow. But then when she actually saw it physically, like she was just so excited, like this is mine, and hugging and things. And so it was just like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I did. And her classroom has a copy. And so she gets excited, like, we read, your book, Miss, her teacher, she read your book, today. And yeah, like it really felt good. And she'll say now, like different friends or family, like, they need a book. And if I showed them a picture of them with the book, she's like, oh, they have the book too. And I know we've gone, like seen some people like in a very small group who've had the book, and she'll see it and she'll point to it like, that's your book. And she said the cutest thing the other day. She was like, yeah, my mom wrote a book. And she's like, yeah, she's famous. I was like, oh, okay. I wrote a book and I'm famous, so I'll take it. In her mind, if I'm famous, like, that's cool.
Absolutely.
Listen here, she is your agent. She is getting.
Right. That's an idea. Yes.
She's like, we got to get these copies out.
Yes. Right. Like, and you did a book, and you did a book.
She is definitely gonna make sure everybody gets a copy.
Oh, she's so funny. Yeah, I know. My little spokeswoman.
Absolutely. Listen, if we all don't have someone who is our hype person, then
that's right. We need to reevaluate ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Yes, developing her voice early.
That is true. She really is. Definitely more. She has that. I don't think I don't know. I don't know if I had that at that age. Maybe I did. I have to ask my parents. But she got it from somewhere, and I love it.
Nice. So every month we kind of like develop a new theme, and our theme for March is leadership. And so what's one word or phrase or quote that you would use to kind of like represent leadership for you?
I would say, hands down, for me, it's vision. That would be my one word. Bible verse, there's no vision, people perish. And I really believe in that because you have to have a sense of like, either where you are going or where the people who you're trying to lead, that you're in that position, where you're trying to get them to go. And I think whether it's, something that you're trying to change or anything, it could be anything. You have to have the ability to see ahead and to know what that goal is that you're trying to reach, and how to do it, and not to be the one to do it, but like how to have, how to see like the people who you need to make that happen. So you have to be able to be, I think, a visionary, to be really to be good at meeting. So that's definitely the word that stands out to me. And I think everything else that you need, of course, that's not the only. But I think with the right vision, like you can also like support those other, things that you need, whether it's empathy or all those integrity, it's like you kind of go on, but yeah, you definitely have to have that foresight, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I think that, we're talking about the timing and where we all are today, right? And the world has changed. The world that we knew, over a year ago is a very different world today. And having that vision, being leaders, creating change, right? And it starts from young. So I love that word. I love that word.
Yeah.
So we have had fun with you, and hearing.
It's over.
I know. I know. We could go on. We could go.
Absolutely.
We could go on.
I know. It's been great.
It's been fun hearing your story and hearing how Girls Can Dream came to be, which is certainly inspirational, not just the story itself, but just your story of how you came into being an author and developing the story. So for our viewers, where can we find your books? How can we get in contact with you? How can we follow you? How can we know what's going on?
Yes, a few different ways. First, girlscandream.org is one place, if you want to sign up for either a mailing list or just use that to direct you to other places where you can find the book. That's a great place to start. It's available on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble. But I'm going to put a big plug in to really supporting your local bookstores. You can find me on bookshop.org, which helps to support local, bookshops, or indiebound.org as well. And it's available in paperback and hardback. So I would definitely encourage everyone to just think about the non-traditional options that are out there, and make sure that we're pouring back into the community and, supporting those local shops as well. So those are some of the places where you can find me. And if you want to just talk to me, you can find me on social media, Facebook, as well as Instagram. Girls Can Dream Book is the handle. And I would love to connect.
I love it. And is there a sequel? Is there another book coming in the works? Or are there other things we have to look forward to?
Most definitely. For this one, I'm trying to decide, what way I want to go. If I've been getting some encouragement to have something that caters to boys. And so I love the idea. So I may do that. But in addition for this book, there is more that I want to do. I just want to try and think of just other ways of repurposing the content, because of course it's educational. I do have merch coming soon.
I see the t-shirt. I have
Girls
seen
Can Dream. So yeah, the girlscandream.org site as well as social media will be great places to stay connected and find out what else I have planned for Girls Can Dream.
And we'll make sure we put those in the comments below so people can definitely be able to connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you. And I appreciate it. It's been an awesome opportunity meeting two more Smallman sisters. I know we're all over the world, but it's great to meet you all. And I'm just so honored for the opportunity to use your platform to, connect with more people. So thank
We're going to
you.
stay connected, as we're growing as a small business and getting the word out about who we are. We want to make sure that the authors that we've come in contact, we make sure that we stay a community. So we will definitely be following you and staying connected to you.
I know, I love that. We will. We definitely will do that.
Absolutely.
And for our viewers, certainly make sure to check us out at www.storiesofacolorfulworld.com. So each month, like Kanika said, we pick a theme for the month. And so this month we have leadership as our theme. So we have some good picks for this month that feature books with stories of characters who are speaking up, taking a stand, making changes, being true leaders and making a difference. So please check out our website. We're also carrying the Girls Can Dream in our bookshop collection as well. So it's highlighted on our website as well. And please make sure to follow us. Like, we enjoy these conversations. We enjoy highlighting new authors that have new voices, and want to make sure we all have a platform and they have a platform. So it has been fun. It's been a pleasure. And thank you everyone for watching.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.